The Amazing Bulk, 2012. This thing is less of a movie and more of an accident that somehow got distributed. Think Hulk but purple, and animated like your cousin's middle school PowerPoint project. The budget? $14,000. To put that in perspective, that's about the cost of one costume in an actual Marvel film. Director Louis Schoenbrunn wanted to create a feature film using only computer-generated backgrounds. The result? A fever dream of floating stock photos, random 3D objects, and characters who look like they're trapped inside an early PC game. The monster himself, the Bulk, doesn't even look angry. He looks confused, like he wandered out of a PlayStation 1 cutscene. Every punch, every explosion, every car chase feels copy-pasted from some free effects website. Critics hated it, sure, but here's the twist. It survived because of the internet. People started watching it for laughs, quoting lines, sharing clips, and turning it into a cult oddity, kind of like The Room, except with way more green screens. And for a $14,000 project, it somehow carved out more online fame than plenty of superhero blockbusters that cost 1,000 times more. But that wasn't the only discount hero to sneak onto screens. Let's talk about the time Thor himself got a knockoff twin. Almighty Thor, 2011. When Marvel's Thor hit theaters, it talked about guts. But instead of a thunder god with epic battles and a galaxy-spanning story, the audience got what looked like a plastic toy hammer. The sets had all the charm of a high school stage play, and then there was Richard Grieco as Loki. Let's just say it wasn't the performance of a lifetime, more like a cosplay gone wrong. Of course, there's a reason it turned out this way. This came from the Asylum, a studio built on mockbusters, cheap, fast-made knockoffs designed to sit on DVD shelves right when the real blockbuster hits theaters. Almighty Thor fit that formula to perfection. And the kicker? The entire budget was so small it wouldn't have even covered catering on a Marvel set, which honestly makes the whole thing even funnier. But the Asylum wasn't about to stop there. If Marvel had the Avengers, they wanted their own team-up too. Avengers Grimm, 2015. The Asylum answered the Marvel's Avengers with Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Little Red Riding Hood. And yes, they actually teamed up to fight Rumplestiltskin, who by now had become the Asylum's go-to villain. To give the project some credibility, they even cast Lou Ferrigno, the original Hulk. His appearance was meant to lend nostalgia power, but it couldn't cover the fact that the movie looked like a cosplay convention filmed on zero sleep. The budget? Let's just say it was about what Marvel spends on snacks during a reshoot. The CGI portals looked like early Windows screensavers. The costumes looked like they were rented from a party store. And the fight choreography had all the intensity of a middle school drama rehearsal. Still, the Asylum knew what they were doing. They released it straight to DVD and Netflix the same week Avengers: Age of Ultron was dominating theaters. It was classic timing, hoping someone scrolling late at night might click the wrong title and end up in this off-brand fairy tale universe. The strangest part? This wasn't a one-off. The Asylum treated it like a pilot for their own twisted shared universe, eventually leading to sequels like Avengers Grimm, Time Wars. Not because anyone was asking for more, but because if Marvel could build a universe, the Asylum gave it a competition. But while the Asylum was busy recycling fairy tales, overseas studios had their own ideas about copying Marvel's formula. Guardians, 2017, Russia. When the trailers first dropped, Guardians looked like Russia's big swing at Marvel. Slick posters, dramatic teasers, and viral marketing made people believe this could launch a brand new cinematic universe. For a brief moment, the hype was real. International fans were actually curious to see Russia's Avengers. And the characters? Completely unhinged. You had a hulking bear man wielding a machine gun, a ninja who could disappear in a puff of smoke, a woman with telekinetic powers, and a speedster who looked like he'd been ripped straight out of an early Xbox cutscene. It was like the writers threw every superhero trope into a blender and hoped something recognizable would stick. The budget was $5.4 million. In Hollywood, that wouldn't even cover the marketing budget for a single Marvel trailer. But in Russia, it was enormous. One of the most expensive superhero productions they had ever attempted. On paper, this was supposed to be their blockbuster moment, a homegrown rival to Hollywood's dominance. But the dream collapsed as soon as it hit theaters. The CGI looked rushed and half-finished. The dialogue was clunky, even in Russian, and the story played more like a stitched-together demo reel than a cohesive movie. Critics hammered it. Audiences laughed at scenes that were meant to be serious, and the ambitious franchise starter turned into a nationwide meme. Financially, it was a disaster. Despite the hype, the film barely made back its budget. Once you factored in marketing costs and distribution cuts, the studio behind it, Enjoy Movies, went bankrupt. Instead of becoming Russia's Avengers, Guardians became a cautionary tale about swinging too hard, too fast. And yet, even Russia's take on the Avengers feels almost normal compared to what came next. Sinister Squad, 2016. Yes, this was the Asylum's take on Suicide Squad, but don't expect Deadshot or Harley Quinn. Instead, you got fairy tale villains pressed into service because, apparently, copyright-free characters are cheaper than anti-heroes. The budget? Practically invisible. Most of it appears to have been filmed in the same warehouse used for 5 other Asylum movies. The costumes wobble between Halloween party gear and thrift store rejects, and the action feels like it was blocked out the morning of the shoot. And somehow, Rumplestiltskin shows up again. The Asylum just couldn't quit him. At this point, he was less a villain and more their recurring mascot, dropped into whatever universe they were trying to build. It didn't make waves, but it did quietly expand the Asylum's bizarre attempt at a shared universe. The critics weren't impressed, but the studio didn't need them. Their formula was about speed, timing, and riding the hype wave, and Sinister Squad fit the pattern perfectly. But long before this, another studio tried chasing Marvel's formula, starting with their own version of Iron Man, Metalman, 2008. The costume says it all. A clunky suit of armor built from cardboard panels, coated in silver spray paint, and held together with duct tape. This was Metalman, a superhero who looked more like a mall promotion mascot than someone meant to protect the world. What makes it even stranger is the timing. This came out in 2008, the exact same year Marvel dropped Iron Man and kicked off the MCU. While Robert Downey Jr. was turning Tony Stark into a global icon, an indie crew in California was quietly releasing their own Man-in-a-Suit movie with a budget that barely rivaled a college short film. The action scenes only made it worse. Punches missed by a mile, laser blasts were pasted in with effects that looked like early PowerPoint animations, and explosions were so bad they made YouTube fan edits look polished. Instead of high-tech heroics, it played like footage of friends goofing around in a warehouse with a borrowed camcorder, and it never saw the inside of a theater. Distribution was limited to bargain DVD bins and small rental outlets where unsuspecting shoppers might have mistaken it for some obscure Marvel spin-off. In reality, it wasn't tied to Marvel at all, just another low-budget attempt to cash in on superhero fever before the MCU even had time to catch its breath. In the end, Metalman became less of a film and more of a case study in how quickly knockoffs tried to ride Marvel's wave. A reminder that if Iron Man could be copied this fast, no superhero was safe. And if Iron Man wasn't safe, Captain America wasn't either. Captain Battle, Legacy War, 2013. Before Marvel's Captain America ruled the big screen, there was another so-called patriotic hero, Captain Battle. He wasn't new. In fact, he was a pulp comic book character from the 1940s, long forgotten until someone decided to drag him back into the modern day. The film throws him against Nazi villains and modern terrorists, but the execution looks like a fan film gone wrong. Costumes feel like thrift shop finds, and the fight choreography barely rises above slow-motion stage combat. The pitch was clear. This was supposed to be America's answer to Captain America, a gritty revival of a hero from the past. But instead of a symbol of justice, what audiences got was awkward acting, stiff battles, and bargain bin production values. The anticlimax? Nobody noticed. It never gained traction in theaters. Critics ignored it, and it quietly disappeared without leaving a trace. A superhero revival that came and went without ever being remembered. But Marvel's Thor got hit not once, but twice. Thor, End of Days, 2015/2020. The premise sounds epic. Thor sent to a crumbling modern Earth to fight giants and stop Ragnarok itself. On paper, that could have been Marvel-level material. In practice, it looked more like a fan project that wandered too far into the bargain bin. The fight scenes never quite land. Thor swings his hammer stiffly. The CGI monsters move like they're half-finished, and the entire thing has the pacing of a student film trying way too hard to be cinematic. The budget was about $1.5 million, which sounds decent for an indie project, but the money doesn't show on screen. Every battle feels weightless. Every effect looks borrowed, and instead of mythic power, you get awkwardness that kills the tension. attention. Then comes the irony. Just as this version of Thor quietly faded into obscurity, Marvel's Thor Ragnarok stormed theaters worldwide and became one of the MCU's biggest hits. One Thor conquered the box office, the other disappeared almost instantly. So yeah, Marvel and DC dominate theaters, but these oddballs prove the strangest heroes never really die, they just get roasted online forever. In the end, the big studios may win the box office, but these forgotten oddballs prove the weirdest heroes never die. They just live on as internet legends.